Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. My name is Chris Peterson of the HuskerBigRed.com. Joining me, as always, is my co host, Danny Gillette of the GreatCornholio.org. And we're here to talk some transfer commitments, some basketball, and some other Nebraska Cornhusker news. We'll start. Danny, how are you doing this Tuesday morning?
I'm doing good. It's been a while, but it's good to see you and good to talk more Nebraska stuff. Never a dull moment. And we got some big things happening tonight in multiple sports. So I'm excited to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, there's a basketball game tonight. Commitment coming up tonight, but Nebraska does land a commitment from a transfer wide receiver, Billy Kemp, on Monday night. Kind of came in a little bit late, but as a guy 5'9", 175 pounds, played a lot at Virginia. Had I think 190 some receptions there. Is one of the top all time leaders in receptions for Virginia. But visited over the weekend. What was your reaction to this pickup for Matt Rule and the Cornhuskers?
I loved this pickup for a couple reasons. For one, it gives us a dedicated veteran slot receiver. I don't think that's something that we've had in a little bit, a productive one in the program. Secondly, with the amount of young wide receivers coming in, it gives the locker room a veteran presence, and I think that's equally important as well. Um, Kemp is a guy that has great hands, can get the ball in space and make things happen after the catch. He's not the fastest, but he can, find open field and, score touchdowns and all that happy stuff. So I think this was a great addition because, you know, we do have a lot of young wide receivers, like I just mentioned, but we don't have a lot of experience. And, he may not be a Trey Palmer type player. I don't think many are these days, but he does fill a big need in terms of wide receiver experience and a dependable, experienced target for the quarterback to throw to.
Yeah, and, Nebraska, yeah, didn't really have, a sure-handed kind of slot guy, and I think that Billy Kemp will be in that role. I mean, one thing that, looking at his numbers, 192 receptions, 1,774 yards, only averaged 9.2 yards per reception for his career, which tells you, he's a little bit limited. He's not a guy that's really going to stretch the field very much. He's kind of a more of a possession receiver, but I mean, Nebraska's going to be out there with multiple receivers, 3, 4 wide receivers. I think quite a bit of the time, that's just college football anymore. Um, but he does give him some really good production. I mean, he had 6 touchdowns in 2021. Last year, he only played in 7 games, and he was going to go to the NFL draft. And then, actually, Nebraska, kind of recruited him and got him interested in it. So he's going to, come back and play one more year at college. He is a pretty solid punt returner, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if he, wound up returning punts for Nebraska, after this
Assuming
next
we
season.
actually return punts in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's a good move. I do think that Nebraska could still use, some help at wide receiver, on the perimeter. Alonte Brown and Marcus Washington are kind of the top 2 veterans, and then it's basically a lot of young guys that you're kind of relying on. So if there's, some other options there, I think that they should explore that. They could still really use a tight end. Marcus Satterfield was talking about fullbacks and all that type of stuff. I don't know if there is a fullback on this roster, and I don't think it's worth getting. I think if you need a fullback, that's a walk on position, or you move a tight end there. To me, tight ends and fullbacks are basically the same position anymore. So I know people got really excited about that, but I don't see really any fullbacks on this roster. I see a lot of guys who could play that H-back, type of role, but I still think this team needs tight end help. They need wide receiver help, and they could use some more offensive line help, which hopefully will come tonight with Micah Mazuka.
I'm hoping. I really am hoping. I mean, he's a very, very solid player. He does well in pass protection, and he also does well creating running lanes. He's exactly what Nebraska needs. He would be an instant starter, and that would just be another player in terms of retooling the offensive line. And I think Bazooka certainly brings experience, and he brings size, and that's exactly what Nebraska needs. And I'm just crossing my fingers, hoping for the best tonight for sure.
Yeah, he's so 6'5", 335 pounds. In the transfer portal from Baylor, was out of St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Maryland. Was his hometown is Philadelphia, and from Pennsylvania. And Evan Cooper tweeted last week, Phil in Nebraska, something like that. And people were wondering if Omar Hales, if that's. I think they were talking about Micah committing. Some people were wanted to say it was Malik Hornsby maybe, and that never didn't wind up happening. He's going to Texas State to play quarterback. So we'll see. After Micah visited Nebraska, he didn't. It wasn't really announced until he was in town. He visited Florida this weekend. He's also been to Auburn. So there's some other schools that are in the mix, but there hasn't really been anything that's changed in terms of the prediction machine or any new crystal balls or anything like that. So it seems like Mike is going to be a Cornhusker tonight, and he's played over 700 snaps last year at right guard, so that would give Nebraska another experienced starter on the offensive line. And I really think that hopefully they can get the kid from Stanford too, Walter Rouse.
Hmm.
He's kind of in the mix with Iowa and Oklahoma, but I think at least one of these two guys Nebraska needs to get. And because this offensive line, you need 8 or 9 guys who can start, and last year Nebraska had about 4. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you look at just what they've done, meeting the coaching staff since they've been here. They've added Ben Scott, and now they have the potential to add Micah Mizuka and Walter Rouse. So this line is undergoing a transformation, and that's not even including the guys that they recruited for the 2023 class. So it's good to see that they're focusing there. I know that some fans were upset early on that maybe not enough attention was paid to the line, but I think they're starting to really work on it now, and there's also probably going to be more attrition after spring ball. So we'll see if anything happens there. I know we said that. I think we said last week that we could pretty much wrap up the 2023 class, but I guess you can never count out Matt Rule and his coaching staff after all.
yeah, I mean it's we'll see. I mean I think there's Nebraska's going to be adding transfers in the spring, and
Yeah.
so I don't think that's a surprise. I mean if there was any other 2023 recruits, maybe I think that but it doesn't seem like there's any interest from Nebraska with any prospects at this point. So we'll see. I mean, Friday's the opening of a new, recruiting period. Coaches can get out and make visits. So we'll see if, where Nebraska goes. I would think that Matt Rule's first stop would be, Ainsworth, Nebraska to see Carter Nelson. And then I would also think they would make a trip to, Chandler, Arizona to see, Dylan Raiola. But there's been some buzz about Georgia with Dylan Raiola, who, I said all along, I wrote an article for Saturday Blitz that kind of ranked his contenders, and Nebraska was up there, but Georgia was up there too, and the reason for that is Georgia hasn't really they didn't land Arch Manning in 2023, so they're kind of looking for they've got a quarterback in 2024 that's a 4-star committed, but that it wouldn't surprise me at all for them to make a strong push. And after watching them win another national championship, it might be hard for Dylan Raiola to say no to that. So we'll see what happens there, but I've said all along, unless Nebraska gets this kid on campus for a visit, I mean, I wouldn't take their chances that seriously.
I saw last night, speaking of Georgia, Thomas Fedoni was what, the 2020 class?
2021.
2021 class? He was the number one tight end. The number two tight end, Brock Bowers. And so that's just Nebraska's luck right there, and it just shows that nothing is a guarantee. But I just thought that was funny because we've had so many so close misses with Nebraska that was just like a damn that's another kick in the nuts right there. But I'm excited to see what they can do for 2024. Um, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Dylan Raiola went to somewhere like Georgia, but I'm hoping he stays home. And this is now the time where we can kind of really see the 2024 class not take shape, but the seeds being planted for, you know, more commitments down the road. And if it's anything like what Nebraska did with the 2023 class, then I expect the 2024 class to really kind of, be another solid one.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where their priorities are, and obviously official visits will start, coming later in the spring. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, where they go. I'm expecting them to be, pretty active, and I'm sure that Matt Rule's going to be, pretty active with this being their, first recruiting class. But yeah, I mean, quarterback's going to be important, and they need to, make sure that they're recruiting Daniel Kalen too, because if Dylan Raiola doesn't come, then they need to make sure they get him. And I think that you could make a case actually, try to recruit both of them, which probably isn't going to happen. But I mean, this program needs quarterback depth, and that's why Hornsby. I mean, I get that he was coming as a wide receiver and he was going to play receiver, but I still think he would have got some snaps, at quarterback this spring, and I just think that that's really needed with this program right now.
Nobody wants to wait though, and I don't think he would want to wait because I think it's going to be Casey Thompson and possibly Jeff Sims, and I just don't think a lot of players don't want to wait these days. And I don't want to sound like an old curmudgeon because they can do whatever the heck they want, but I just think he saw an opportunity to start, and he took it. And all the best to him. I certainly wish we were able to get him, but I totally get why he did what he did. And I think as long as there is continued focus on the quarterback position, I'm not too worried. I mean, we saw a complete lack of focus in previous regimes, and we ended up getting stuck really, really badly. So I mean, we'll see what happens, but I feel more confident that we'll focus on the quarterback position than I have in other years because other years have just been downright awful.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And hopefully, I mean, with the spring, I'm interested to see if any of these younger quarterbacks, can develop at all, or if guys, transfer out like Smothers or Chuba Purdy or any of those guys. So we'll be interested to see. I'll be surprised if Nebraska carries, Thompson, Sims, and Purdy and Smothers all to fall camp. We'll see. I mean, it wouldn't nothing shocks me anymore, but I would think that one of those guys would go via the transfer portal, at some point, and that that's just the way that things work. They want a chance to play somewhere else, and it's not they're not going to play at Nebraska outside of a very long set of injuries, because I think it's obviously going to be Thompson and then Sims, or whichever way that works out. But we'll see, and that's going to be an interesting thing too. I mean,
Harburg
uh,
and Torres also, they're still here, right?
yeah, that's what
So,
yeah. See
yeah.
if one of those guys
So,
will emerge.
there's a lot of people in the room that I could see either one of them transferring just because, like you said, I don't think I see it as Thompson, Sims, and then the field, as they say. So,
Yeah.
I just it's just so many misses at quarterback that we need to get this position right, and I think we will with the staff. Go ahead. I just had that thought in my head. Hey, we have two more quarterbacks.
Yeah, I just think we'll learn a little bit more about those guys, this spring, and get an idea for what, this coaching staff thinks of them. But I wouldn't expect Harburg or Torres to ever play a snap for Nebraska. Honestly, that's I'd be surprised if they ever started a game. They'll probably end up transferring out. I apparently the new staff likes Harburg. Rule likes Harburg, but it sounds like he had some issues learning the system last year. I'm not really sure that like these guys had great coaching in Nebraska, but hopefully it works out where Sims or whoever, if Thompson starts this year. The nice thing is if Thompson was able to start this year, then hopefully you would have Jeff Sims for the next 2 years. But that's kind of idealistic. I'm not sure if he would stick around, or if he would. You just never know how things are going to play out anymore. But it could totally be a situation too where Jeff Sims wins the job and then Casey transfers. I mean, I don't think that you can rule anything out anymore.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a legitimate quarterback competition. I don't think as much as Casey was a starter last year, I don't think he's the guaranteed outright 100% starter this year. And I think a lot of that stems from how is he going to heal? We don't know how he's going to heal. We don't know what he's going to look like when he steps on the field. I'm sure he'll be ready. And I'm not saying that he will just take it easy and won't be ready, but I do think there's, a legitimate quarterback competition in the room, if nothing else, because of Thompson's health. But like I've said before, I also believe that Sims fits what Matt Rule wants to do in an RPO offense just a little bit better, especially with that blazing speed.
Yeah, and he does throw the football, well. We'll see. I think that Casey can run the football a little bit more than people, give him credit for. He just didn't, get a lot of opportunities last year.
I
So
think a lot of that was Whipple, yeah. I think a lot of that was Whipple and his awful offense. I think he could, but I think Whipple kinda wanted him to stay in the pocket and ugh, what a disaster.
because I mean, I know Baylor. They haven't really had a lot of run. I mean, it's not like Rules had a ton of guys that were running quarterbacks. He's had a lot of passing type quarterbacks. So as long as you're an accurate thrower and you can provide a little bit of a run threat, you don't have to be a runner to be in this offense. I guess is what I'm saying. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Jeff Sims. He's a strong athlete, but his passer rate, his career completion percentage, is like 56%. So that tells you that he's not that great of a passer. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. But the running offense I think should be pretty solid next year. The really good. You got some really good running backs with Anthony Grant and AJ Allen, and the offensive line. Should be improved. Nebraska ran the ball decently last year. They just weren't committed to it. So I mean, I think just having that commitment and upgrading the offensive line, it's going to be a good kind of starting point for the offense.
Getting AJ Allen back is really huge because it gives you another productive running back when, Anthony Grant, needs a rest or something like that, and he kind of contrasted Anthony Grant's style a little bit in terms of I thought Allen was more of a, shifty, kind of elusive runner who was light on his feet in comparison to Grant, who was more of a downhill, you know, but between the tackles type of runner, and I thought that worked well in terms of, the different styles within the offense. And I'm really excited to have Allen back. I was afraid he was going to leave, and that just having him back just allows for another dynamic player in this offense. He had 33 carries for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns before his injury last year, and honestly, his injury was one of the, I would say, most disappointing things of last season. I was really, really looking to see him play a full season, and having him back, I'm excited for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's going to be, a big time player, and that rotation is going to be interesting with Grant and AJ Allen. Ramir Johnson's still here, Emmett Johnson. So, it'll be interesting to see how that all works out. But I think a pretty good, 1-2 punch next season for Nebraska, and I feel good about where the offense is. I do think that Nebraska really could use another edge rusher at least, in the um, transfer portal, maybe another defensive tackle if they could find one. But those guys are hard to find. So I think at any rate, for I do think that this team is 90% essentially completed for what it's going to be next year. There might be a couple of new guys on offense or defense, but for the most part, I think what Nebraska is right now. That's what the roster is going to look like.
And I feel a lot better about this team, you know, than I felt even just 2 months ago. And I'm excited for this season. I'm happy it starts in August, so that way we can get football a little bit early. And, you know, especially after watching last night's national championship game. I mean, TCU made it to the final, but boy, boy, Georgia just absolutely ruled the day. And it was just kind of interesting to watch an elite football program and kind of a blueprint for where you want to go as a program if you're any program. And so that just, reminded me, how far Nebraska still has to go, but I like the progress in recruiting that we've made over the past, I don't know, month or so.
Yeah, it's been I think the football programs trending up. So hopefully that will keep happening, and we'll get to spring ball and actually get our first glimpse of everything here in a couple of months, and that'll be exciting. And there's going to be an exciting game tonight at the Vault at
Mm.
Pinnacle Bank Arena as the Cornhuskers are trying to get to 3-3 in the Big Ten. Illinois is coming in tonight, and they've kind of struggled, but they're a really talented team. Really strong defensively. How are you feeling about the Nebraska basketball tonight?
I feel like it's going to be a tough game for them. I honestly thought even though they won on Saturday, I think they blew it against Minnesota. They should have won in regulation, but they also won in overtime and, kind of had a gritty win to get the job done. I mean, I think this team has a lot of fight, and that's exactly what you need in the Big Ten. And I feel very confident about tonight because, you know, and this has been a theme throughout the entire season. I did. This is a team that's not going to just roll over, and this is a team that has a defensive identity. So as long as they play to their strengths, I think they can win this game. And getting Greasel and Walker going early is going to be key, and also keeping Walker out of foul trouble is going to be important as well. And I feel good about tonight, but it's the Big Ten. Anybody can win on any given night, and I think it's going to be a fun one. And that's not something I've said about Nebraska basketball over the past couple seasons for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the vault's going to be rocking. It's a big opportunity. It was a yeah, Nebraska, should have won, closed out the game in regulation on Saturday, but it was still a huge win to me. I think any road win in the Big Ten is huge for this program right now because
Absolutely, yeah.
you're like I've been saying, they've got to get 9 or 10 wins just to get that NIT berth, which I think is realistic. This team has to win like 5 or 6 in a row to talk about the NCAA tournament. So I think anybody talking about that just needs to forget it. But if you win this game tonight, you're 3-3 in the Big Ten, and you've got a really solid win against Illinois. And so honestly, to me, this is another must-win game. I mean, I talked about Minnesota being a must-win. If this team is going to play postseason basketball, whether it be the NIT or any dark horse chance at the NCAA tournament, you have to win this game. Illinois has one Big Ten win. Their point guard is just stepped away from basketball and Cy Clark for a while. It's going to be all about defense. They're going to try to force turnovers and shoot a bunch of threes and turn it into kind of a up and down game. So I think it's going to be really important for Sam Greasel to kind of set the tone in terms of the tempo and getting it into Derek Walker. But must win game for Nebraska tonight. So they need to they really need to get this one. It's a big opportunity, and if they're gonna make any noise in the Big Ten, these are the kind of games that they just have to win at home.
I was just looking up some of the statistics, and the most Big Ten wins Fred Hoiberg has had in his tenure was last year with 4. He went 2-18 in 2019-20 and 3-16 in 2020-2021. So there is improvement, I think, with this program this season, but tonight will tell a lot. And like you said, playing through Walker and playing through Greasel is going to be extremely important because they can slow the pace down. And, if you get them both involved in the offense and, let them both kind of control the pace of the game by feeding the ball inside and taking the ball slowly up the floor, I think Nebraska can win this game. Follow the same blueprint that they had against Creighton and Iowa, and I think they'll be okay because to me, yes, they left some shots open against Iowa, but overall, I thought they were very solid defensively in terms of pace and shots. And, I think, what they did against Iowa a couple weeks ago was the blueprint on how to win in the Big Ten. So hopefully they can do that again tonight. And if they do, it'll be a huge win.
Yeah, it's this will be one of the best defensive teams that they've played all year. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was a game in the 60s. We'll see. Illinois wants to play a faster tempo. Nebraska wants to kind of slow it down, and that might be a kind of a deciding factor. But it's in terms of predictions. I'm going to go ahead and predict the Huskers to win tonight. I think Illinois is a little bit kind of up and down. It's going to be really tough though. I mean, you can't underestimate this team. Terrence Shannon, Coleman Hawkins. Matthew Mayer, is a guy from Baylor, can shoot the ball really well. So they have a lot of really good shooters, but I really do think, Nebraska's defense is going to show up tonight. And I think Sam Greasel is going to play well and Derek Walker. And I'm going to say Nebraska wins something like 65-62. It's going to be kind of a low scoring, grinded out, game inside the vault.
I'm gonna say Illinois wins like 70-62. I think because I think Nebraska will keep this close, but Illinois will just find a way to win it in the end. Um, but I do think this will be a close game. I'm looking for another guy like C.J. Wilcher to step up. When he's on the money, he can make 3-point shots and get into a nice rhythm. But when he's cold, he is like refrigerator ice cold. And it's kind of all or nothing for him. Either he's on or he's off. And if Nebraska wants to win this game, they need to get, their 3-point shooters going, Kesey, CJ, those guys. And as much as we like Walker and Greasel, they are going to need some help tonight. And hopefully the shooting arms of Wiltshire and Tominaga are warmed up tonight, because Nebraska is going to need it.
Yeah, they're gonna have to make some shots. Usually, it's easier for those kind of role players to make make shots at home. And I think Kaisei's done some really good things, and yeah, Wiltshire's kind of been up and down. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Illinois has got some shooters, and Nebraska's gonna have to make some shots tonight, no question about it. But at home, hopefully they will come through. So you can watch that. That's going to tip off tonight, 8 p.m. Central Time, and then watch out for Micah. Mazuka is going to be deciding. He said 8 p.m. I don't know if that means Eastern time or Central time, so I'm not really sure. But look for that. Around that decision time tonight. I believe it's going to be good news for Nebraska. At least that's where the signs are pointing right now. But there could be a lot of change here in the next 24 hours. But we'll make sure that we have all the reactions. So make sure that you guys like this video, get into the comment section, and like the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. We're breaking down all these commitments, all the recruiting news, everything that has
A
to
lot
do
of
with
news.
Nebraska, basketball moving forward. So, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and let us know your predictions for tonight and everything else going forward. So, as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.